Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is What If Deku Had a Frostbite Quirk Part 2, and it seems like you guys enjoyed Part 1, and I want to say this. Thanks for all the comments. Yeah, I know the video might not do amazing in terms of viewership. I don't expect it to, and that's completely fine. But the fact that a ton of you commented that you are happy that I'm going back to this style, happy that to see more content from me, it means a lot because it definitely gives me more motivation to continue doing this type of content. As most of you guys know, I, for the most part, do YouTube full time outside of I also coach football and stuff like that. But currently I'm not in season, but I do this full time. This is not my only channel I run, so obviously I use those other channels to also make some sort of a living for myself. But yeah, just seeing that you guys really enjoy the content makes me feel like, you know what, I have to get you guys more content. I have to get more videos out to y'all. So that's why we're here already with part 2 of What If Deku Had a Frostbite Quirk. I'm gonna try my best to get content out to y'all. If it's not Deku What Ifs, hopefully it's gonna be maybe a up and coming solo leveling What If, or maybe I'll do a Naofumi What If or something like that. You will be getting more content from me, especially on this channel. But with that said, we had a little bit of a cliffhanger when we last left off, so I want to get right into the what if. Let's get it. Where we left off was the USJ. Of course, we're dealing with the League of Villains and Shigaraki, who has just shown their face and is now threatening the students in front of two pro heroes, that of Pro Hero 13 and also Aizawa. Now, they all stand there in complete shock at where they've come from, but of course, Aizawa would not hesitate and jump straight into action to protect his students. This is the person he's always been and the person he will always be. But there's somebody else that would jump straight into action, and that is Izuku Midoriya. He's seen what Aizawa has gone through, the teachings he's taught him, so there is no hesitation when Izuku sees these villains show up. He begins to absolutely help dismantle the villains to a large extent with Shota Aizawa. There is no hesitation from Izuku as they continue to cut through all of the villains, and Izuku begins to try to use his quirk, at least, to protect as many people as possible, but also stop these low-grade villains that Shigaraki has brought and the League of Villains have brought in general. Now, this is one thing that Izuku has always struggled to do, and that's more or less hold back. He's had a hard time holding back with the immense power that he controls, but since he's not at a unwavering emotional kind of impacted state, he's able to more or less keep his temper, his emotions all in check, and he's able to assist Aizawa in defeating everybody. Actually, he's able to slow down every single person there, restricting their movements so Aizawa could easily defeat them all. Aizawa was even shocked by the display of this power because he's actually never seen Izuku do this, and Izuku remarks that they've never had a large-scale battle, so of course he hasn't seen him do it. In which Izuku would kind of shrug this off, but say that it makes it like he's some sort of support hero, at least in this regard. Now, Aizawa isn't too happy that Izuku sprung into action the way he did, but still, he believes that he's in a good mindset, so he has Izuku continue to help him. And Aizawa's gonna need all the help he can get, because immediately he would be blindsided by a giant monster known as a Nomu. This Nomu would blindside Aizawa, but luckily Izuku was able to get a sheet of ice in front of him, but that sheet of ice would shatter into pieces as that fist would still land on Aizawa's face. Aizawa would go flying, but luckily enough, he isn't as hurt as he actually could be, and Izuku would begin trying to defend Aizawa, trying to slow down the Nomu. But this Nomu was made to not only fight some of the strongest pro heroes and have insane durability and endurance, but also it's made to destroy and kill the one and only All Might. So Izuku tries to fend it off to his best extent, but it's extremely difficult. He tries to slow him down, and he really can't do anything about it. He tries to freeze the inside of the Nomu and try to basically sap the Nomu's strength out of his body, but it seems like the Nomu itself has no restriction. And what Izuku doesn't realize is that the Nomu just flat out doesn't feel pain, or to a large extent is completely under this weird hypnotic control that whatever pain he's inflicting within the Nomu's body to slow it down, it's not hesitating to just push through it and try to break through the constraints or the constraints that Izuku is basically placing on him, which is insane. This thing is not human, and it's far from it, and Izuku realized that very quickly. But luckily enough, Izuku would have his hero, or basically overarching hero, which is most people's hero, All Might, arrive on the scene, and All Might would then take up the frontal assault on the Nomu. But this is no easy fight for All Might, but luckily enough he does have Izuku to mildly support him to a large extent. But once Shigaraki notices that Izuku and All Might are, for the most part, working together, Shigaraki looks for an opening not only on Izuku, but also on All Might himself. Shigaraki would be teleported in by Kurogiri, looking to touch Izuku. But luckily enough, Izuku is able to avoid this, and he places a sheet of ice in front of him. When he does this though, the sheet of ice would then decay and then evaporate almost instantly. And he would be completely shocked by this, because he's never seen someone be able to destroy something like that so easily, especially the way it was destroyed. He now knows that if he's touched by this Shigaraki person, he could genuinely die, so he needs to be careful. But his emotions begin to slightly fluctuate, because this is the first time he's ever been in a life or death situation. A situation that is absolutely terrifying, especially because he's still just a kid. That's what they are. They're all kids, not hardened heroes, not hardened soldiers, they're kids. So when Izuku actually realizes that this is tempting fate to a large extent, and there's a good chance he could die, we're now dealing with something that is beyond his own emotional control. He tries to help All Might defeat the Nomu, and his emotions would begin to be sporadic, and it would affect the environment not only around them, but would actually affect the ice that is being utilized within the Nomu. Good or bad, you never really know, but it seems like it's the Nomu slowing down even more because of his emotional instability. Now, this might be good for just the moment, but when Shigaraki goes to actually touch All Might instead of Izuku, knowing that this kid's defenses might be just too good, Izuku begins to kind of be scared for All Might. Knowing what one touch could truly do to a person, he begins to reach out his own hand and reach it toward the hand of Shigaraki. Now, he's nowhere near Shigaraki, but he begins to utilize his powers, his frostbite powers, to induce a bunch of ice and also cold environmental factors within the body of Shigaraki, affecting the water that pumps through his body, or the water that is mostly taken up of his body, because like I said in the past, your body is made up of mostly water, and it would begin to affect Shigaraki more than it would even affect Bakugo. Normally, or what he did last time, was he was able to shut down Bakugo's senses for just a moment's notice, knocking him out and then reawakening him almost instantly. But this is different. He's panicking. He's emotional. He's scared. He's worrying for not only his life, but the people around him and his idol, the one, the only, All Might. So he decides that he's going to utilize his quirk within Shigaraki's body to turn him off, basically. To turn off his whole bodily functions and make him pass out. But that's not what happens. When he utilizes his quirk, as the water in Shigaraki's body begins to freeze over, it begins to crystallize, and it begins to sharpen up and spike, and as it does, his organs, or most of his organs, get punctured by the ice that is within his body. Of course, Izuku is not able to more or less control the power that he's trying to control, because like I said, his emotion is running wild. So Shigaraki feels these wounds smash into not only his liver, but his stomach, his parts of his lungs, and so on. And as it continues to pile on and grow throughout his body, the spikes begin to sharpen even more and more and more, and it begins to spread throughout his entire system, system of organs, and then also leading up all the way into his brain. Yes, this version of Izuku panics, and he's unable to control the power that he's been trying to control for so long, and he does something he never thought he would. He takes the life of Shigaraki. Yes, this sounds insane, but Izuku would take the life of Shigaraki, and All Might and everybody else would stand there in complete shock. What just happened? He just collapsed. Shigaraki just collapsed and is seemingly punctured all throughout his body, but he's not bleeding, at least not externally. He must be bleeding internally. Now, with Shigaraki on the ground and practically dead, everybody begins to scour to try and more or less get help, and more or less, and the other villains try to escape. But of course, when Kurogiri goes to try and get Shigaraki out of there, one Bakugo would actually stop him periodically, and also Todoroki would join in on the action, stopping Kurogiri from even moving. And luckily enough, people like Aizawa and also Bakugo and Shoto were in the position to stop Kurogiri from forcing, from basically allowing him to take Shigaraki and get out of there scotch-free. But here's the thing. There's something and someone within those walls that just watched Izuku kill Shigaraki, and, well, he might be inclined to leak the information that this just occurred. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. The UA traitor is going to come into effect. For those who know already, you know who the UA traitor is, but I won't speak on that specifically. But all I'll say is that the UA traitor now has ammunition on one of the focal points that UA tries to present. Now, with all that said, they try to approach things quietly. They try to bring people in to more or less get Izuku's, crime, you could say, out of left field. But there's going to be a lot of people that feel very indifferent or on one of two sides on this so-called killing of one Shigaraki. Now, before the information would even get leaked out, people would speak to Izuku at UA, including Aizawa and them. They would speak on the fact that he can't go around killing people, and that is not the way of a hero. But Izuku would be kind of in shock, unable to collect his thoughts and unable to really put all the pieces together for himself, and he's just out of it entirely, not understanding what he did really. And he begins to even say like he was just trying to protect everybody, try to save them, and he never meant it to go this far. He never meant to even take a life. And Aizawa would make it very clear that yes, taking a life is extremely bad, but at the same time, we all understand that that was a very high pressure situation. That was a situation where Shigaraki was considering and also threatening to not only kill All Might, but kill the kids and the children that are currently there. That's a scary thought, a very scary thought for a bunch of high schoolers to deal with. Yes, they are future heroes, but that is the key word. They're future heroes. They're not heroes now. Their burden that they have to deal with immediately at this moment is something that is beyond anyone's comprehension, and that's why UA is going to be a little bit lenient with Izuku. They would begin to more or less put him through emotional type of classes and maybe even therapy and some other stuff on top of that, trying to get him to go out of his whole cold demeanor and also make him extremely calm, maybe even get him in the right mindset and actually make him more interactive with some of the people around. Because yes, he was emotional about saving a bunch of people, but if he really can get a grasp on all the emotions that are more or less going to revolve around him, then it could make him in a different situation. be in a better state of mind, you could even say. But like I said, this leak of the USJ and what occurred is going to happen. And a day after the USJ was completely just scrapped and everything occurred with the invasion, immediately televisions would go off talking about UA's spectacle. And it talks about actually specifically one Izuku Midoriya, someone who's been promoted in the light of UA High School. And they talk about how he actually killed one of the intruders that tried to come in and hurt not only the students, but also the faculty and so on. Now, this is where I believe things get split pretty hard. Everything begins to change for Izuku because a lot of people believe that he should no longer become a hero. A lot of people don't want to see his face and believe that even though he's a kid, that he needs to know that his powers are to be controlled and not to be tested in the way of killing. But others begin to say that he's just a kid, and a kid that not only saved literally all his classmates and his teachers, but on top of that, a kid that it deserves a second chance. And a lot of people begin to say that a lot of these villains really don't deserve to be quote-unquote living. And a lot of people would begin to argue about this, especially on social medias and even in person, some rioting about how Izuku Midoriya should be expelled, and others rioting against them, saying that Izuku Midoriya should be shown as a hero, someone that is or was able to stick his neck out for his classmates and protect them, someone that was able to stand his ground against some of the scariest villains they possibly have seen in ever in their lives, and still be ready and prepared to defeat them. Yes, don't get me wrong, killing is not very good, just, in general, but we're talking about a villain here. Izuku Midoriya did not accidentally kill a hero, and that's a lot of the arguments that are being made. People from both sides having very, very good arguments to a large extent, and many other people talking about how Izuku Midoriya should be praised, and others saying that Izuku Midoriya should be punished. But this right here would really hurt Izuku to a large extent, even so much that they recommend that he doesn't even participate in the UA Sports Festival, saying that the UA Sports Festival will just be a distraction, and many people will just bring down just hell on him. And this is eventually left up to a choice for Izuku, and Izuku would decide to go and participate in the UA Sports Festival. But soon, even after the first event, they would realize that this is not a good thing, because yes, half of them are cheering for Izuku, but the other half is throwing trash, throwing things, saying horrible things, and saying that he's a criminal, saying that he's horrible and that he should be locked away and so on. That during this obstacle course race, Izuku would get a pretty good ranking, but soon UA would decide that they need to pull him out, that they need to pull him out of the situation, because if they don't, it might get really ugly. So they decide to pull him out of UA High School, or not UA High School, but the UA Sports Festival. And then they begin to speak with him about they're going to find him a different internship. And he's actually going to be probably interning with some other hero that more or less feels okay with actually utilizing and supporting him. And there's not a ton at the moment because the press is pretty bad. Yes, they do say that all publicity is good publicity, but in this regard, it's not very good. But eventually, someone would have come across the table for Izuku specifically, and it would be an interesting one. One that it seems that somebody actually talked to somebody else to get him that type of internship. And that internship would be right alongside Shoto Todoroki with Endeavor. Now, this might sound completely out of the ballpark, but with all the publicity and all the the framework that is going on, Todoroki believed that the best way to approach this is to bring Izuku to Endeavor's agency, and that would be kind of his way of showing up his father in a way. And he also believes that the publicity in general would be good for Endeavor, and that's kind of how he convinces him. But also Todoroki believes that being around his father, yes, it does suck, Yeah, but he does believe that it would be for the best in terms of his own hero career. He's still not up to more or less utilize his other side or his fire side of his quirk, and he's feeling kind of, straying away from that even more with Izuku by his side, especially because Izuku has an ice-like quirk as well. But when they would arrive at Endeavor's agency later on, they would talk to Endeavor, and Endeavor would make it very clear that he doesn't actually see Izuku as a criminal, which is kind of a wild thing for Endeavor to say, especially to him. But he also says that he believes that his quirk is useless and not really good at all compared to the ones that not only his son has, but also himself, in which Izuku would be snapped right back to reality because he really thought that a high-ranked hero, the number 2 hero, was really complimenting him. But obviously, he took that back pretty quickly. Now, with that said, a lot of people would hear about Izuku going with an internship to Endeavor. Some pretty happy about it, learning from somebody like Endeavor, but some would even kind of attribute this to the fact that Endeavor has shown on multiple occasions that his aggressive nature is very unheroic, and that's something that Izuku maybe he wanted to go there because of it, and maybe he's just going to be more and more like Endeavor, or give himself a advantage in terms of a more killing intent. But that's literally not why he came. But as we know, speculation is a scary thing because people love to come up with their own conclusions. Now, with that said, they would begin training together, both Izuku and Shoto. But here's the thing. Izuku would bring up that in an ice-on-ice fight, that he stands no chance, that he needs his fire. But of course, Todoroki would immediately reject this factor and say that he does not need his fire, he does not need his father's quirk. But Izuku would find this to be a little bit off-putting because he believes that the quirk that he was given is not his father's, that it's far from his father's, and that it is his own, that he has both fire and ice, but it is not separate, it is one. And that's just what Izuku believes and begins to tell him. But of course, Todoroki would not believe or even think about what he's saying. And eventually they would lead on to their first mission, or a patrol type mission. And that would be headed off into Hosu City to just round up some regular bad guys. But unfortunately, that would not be the case in this situation, because the death of Shigaraki would actually result in All For One, or who we don't know at this moment, but yes, All For One, to actually unleash a ton of Nomus and trying to kind of do put into the void of what Shigaraki was going to do. So he needs to speak with Stain and stuff like that, and he's trying to gather this team of some sorts to benefit himself and try to alter his plan. It might seem odd, but yes, All For One is somehow out of the plan, and it seems like he overestimated or underestimated maybe something that someone would do. He never thought that a hero like that would more or less be bloodthirsty enough to kill somebody just without hesitation like the way he did, but he guesses that that is the case now, and more or less he's gonna have to deal with it in the long run. But for now, he sends off Nomus to distract and also take over and basically hurt Hosu City, and quickly Izuku and Todoroki would be thrusted into the fray. And immediately they'd fend off a bunch of Nomus, and these Nomus are obviously easier to defeat, but this does make Izuku feel kind of shaky. He feels a little shaky because of the fact that he is taking on these beings that he's seen before, but also the fact that he's taking on these beings that kind of put him in the situation that he is in now. But quickly, he would have things piled up on him, especially when he begins to see somebody in the nearby area, and he begins to hear that Tenya Ida is currently missing. And he begins to think to himself that Tenya Ida was acting very odd at one point, that he was acting very suspicious, as if he was going to do something stupid, not too long ago. He saw it on some of the cameras, and also when he was kind of walking around the UA Sports Festival while he was just, waiting for everything to be over. Of course, he was kind of hidden in terms of, like, didn't want to be seen because people probably would have went ballistic. But he did hear and also see a couple things that made him a little bit uncertain about what he was trying to do, or Tenya was trying to do. So eventually he would kind of race off to like look around to see what anybody, or if anybody was around, and eventually he would hear someone call out, and that would be Tenya. But Tenya is calling out not to him, but to the person in front of him, as if he's talking to someone else, and soon he would see who he was talking to. He's talking to the hero killer, Stain. Stain is a just renowned assassin and also a renowned killer of heroes that do bad or are not pure in their integrity and also in their hero work. So when Stain would be there to kill Tenya, he would look up and see the face of the person that's been going absolutely viral everywhere for killing a villain, and that is Izuku Midoriya. Talk about someone unworthy of being a hero in the eyes of Stain, and that's immediately who he sets his eyes on and immediately sets his warpath on as well. Dashing at Izuku immediately, but Izuku is able to fend him off to a large extent with his Frostbite powers. He knows that he could stop Stain right now by freezing the water in his body, but he doesn't know, and he questions himself if he's going to more or less kill the guy, and he doesn't want to do that. So he begins to try and send a ton of ice and change the absolute scenery of this area to stop Stain from actually hurting him or anybody else. Trying to entrap Stain in ice is easier said than done, but he's still trying to do so. But he needs some help. There's just no way he can do this on his own, at least not when he's trying, or at least when he's not trying to literally kill Stain. Of course, he could just kill him, but mentally, Deku's not going to do that. Not right now, and he's going to try to never do that ever again. He's trying to not let his emotions do that, but seeing Tenya Ida on the ground suffering, and on top of that, seeing a bunch of one other person, another hero, on the ground basically dead, this begins to kind of lay waste to his mind. He begins to think to himself, maybe he should kill. Maybe he should take this guy out now before he can hurt anyone else. But before he can make a decision that would change his life forever, a blast of fire would come out of nowhere. He would look behind him, thinking Endeavor was standing there waiting to help, but it wasn't Endeavor. It was Shoto Todoroki utilizing his fire side. Shoto would tell him that he understands that his ice is so much stronger than his own, but there's one thing Izuku doesn't have, and that's fire. And together, they will actually take down Stain, the hero killer. Izuku would smirk just a little bit, feeling like this is what it should feel like to become a hero. The trials, the tribulations, this is what it should feel like. So immediately they would stand their ground as fire and ice would begin to blast towards Stain. But Izuku's ice, his Frostbite Quirk, is so much different than you would think. It's so much different because fire is beautifully compatible with the ice that he emits, the frost, and also the cold environment that he sets, and it begins to actually enhance the fire. As if it's a burning cold, it combines as it travels towards Stain, and it begins to inflict extreme damage onto Stain, restricting his movement so much that he's able to be captured entirely by Izuku, still alive, but captured at that, and they await the arrival of Endeavor and many other heroes as they basically try to not take credit for what they did, and eventually they would be in trouble, of course, for saving their friend, which is a crazy thought, but luckily enough, Endeavor takes all the credit, and it's said that the hero killer Stain was not only captured by Endeavor, but Tenya Ida was saved by Endeavor as well, so they actually wouldn't get in trouble. With all that said, you have the internships get shut down far earlier than normal, but soon Izuku would continue to get news that has made him fear what he truly did and what he could have and was thinking about doing against Stain. And that's Yue's repercussions. And Yue begins to tell him that they are in a bad spot here. Very bad spot. Funding threatening to, or the funding is basically threatening to not fund them anymore. The hero board is basically threatening to reduce their funding because of Izuku himself and the statement that they basically put out when actually keeping Izuku around. And Izuku begins to ask, does that mean he's expelled? And Aizawa would shake his head and he would say not quite, but that also means that he's going to be separated from his classmates for a large portion, that his final exam will be on his own, and that a lot of other things will be on his own as well. And they can't have the other people and the other schools and other hero boards and stuff like that knowing that he still goes to UA. But for now, until basically things get a little bit quieter, they need to keep him under wraps and basically say that they're not going to necessarily expel him, but put him under full rehabilitation and not allow him to go out and fight people or even train under a hero-like environment, which would be completely devastating for Izuku. Izuku would think to himself that maybe he can recover, that he can change this and stop what's going on, but things begin to go through his head. Lots of things. Things like, well, how is this his fault? I mean, he made one mistake, but was it even a mistake? He stopped a villain that was trying to kill people, a villain that was trying to hurt them. How is it his fault? Why is everything like this happening to him? It's as if he does something good, at least kind of in a way, and he gets the repercussions as if he did something bad. And he doesn't understand. Yes, he did kill a villain, and he shouldn't have done that. But he also stopped a villain that was going to do countless and countless things. A villain that was doing countless horrible things. And he just doesn't understand it. He can't get it through his own head and can't understand it in his own mind. And it hurts him so much that the next day, Izuku would not be waiting for a rehabilitation. Izuku would be gone. He would be gone out of UA High School, and many people within the faculty question where he could have even gone. His mother, no idea where he went. It's as if he's off the radar entirely. Izuku Midoriya, the one who defeated Shigaraki, saved his classmates, but killed a villain. A death is a death is what most people look at, and, well, it seems as if he's been isolated and strung out entirely because of society's split on what he truly is. Is he a hero, or is he just as bad as them because he killed? They have no idea, and it seems like there is no choice in this matter because Izuku has already left and has already escaped, at least to quote-unquote escaped, and now he's on his own. For the first time, Izuku Midoriya is on his own. What will he do? What's the next steps for Izuku? What is going on in Izuku's head at this moment? Well, you're gonna have to find out in the next part of What If Deku Had a Frostbite Quirk. If you enjoyed, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. I'm not sure how long this series will go. It just depends on when I want to stop it, or how I want to stop it, or how I want to end it. As always, though, if you enjoyed part 2, could be a part 3 later on, could be a part 4. I don't know yet. But if y'all enjoyed it, show some love. Like I said, like, sub, comment down below, all that good stuff. And yeah, with all that said, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.